Google said they wouldn't touch APKs. But they lied. While their executives kept repeating that Android would remain free, more than 40 international organizations detected silent changes heading in a completely opposite direction. What they promised in public didn't match what they started doing in private, and what these organizations found changes everything. When Google bought Android in 2005, they sold it as the opposite of Apple. While the iPhone was closed and everything went through the App Store, Android was presented as an open system where you were the owner of your device. And the tool that made that freedom possible was the APK, or Android Package Kit, which is basically a file that contains an entire app. You download it, you open it, and that's it. No middlemen, no stores, no one's permission needed. Thanks to that, we lived through a golden era. Emulators, apps that hacked everything, apps to customize almost anything, even root access, which is basically having full control of your phone as if you were the system administrator. You literally felt like a hacker. But that ecosystem also attracted problems. Malicious apps, clones that stole data, viruses that infiltrated even the Play Store itself. Google started seeing that freedom as a weak point against Apple, since Apple always said our system may be closed, but it's more secure. So Google needed an excuse to close that small but significant gap, and they found it. Security. They say that apps outside the Play Store are 50 times more likely to contain malware. And yes, it's real. So real that in Brazil and Indonesia, scammers trick people into installing APKs that steal banking credentials. But here comes the irony. The Play Store itself already contains malware, and Google Play Protect already scans apps regardless of where they come from, whether they're safe or not. Google already has all the tools to protect you, but instead of improving them, they prefer to do nothing and blame it all on external APKs. But the real reason behind all of this is something else. Google lost a historic lawsuit against Epic Games a few months ago, where the court ordered them to open their ecosystem and allow rival app stores. At the same time, the DMA, or Digital Markets Act from the European Union, which is the most aggressive law in the world against tech monopolies, demands fair competition from Google with fines of up to 10% of their global revenue, which is a lot of money for something so simple. So Google was cornered, and their best idea was to say, fine, I'll open the door. But that open door didn't last very long. In August 2025, they announced that starting in 2026, all apps will need their developer to be verified by Google through something called the Android Developer Console, which is basically the portal where Google controls who has permission to create apps for Android. That means anyone who creates an application will have to pay Google $25, send them their passport or government ID, and verify their phone number, among other things. Companies and organizations also have to obtain something called a DUNS number, which is an international business registry number that can take up to a month to get. If the developer doesn't do all of that, then your phone will automatically block their app and won't let you install it. And the most disturbing part of all is that Google will push that update to your device without your consent. A phone that you bought believing it was open, because yes, most people who buy Android do it mainly for that, for the freedom and the APKs. Many analysts called this malicious compliance. If the court forces Google to allow alternative stores, but Google requires all software to go through their verification and their approval, then they didn't really open anything. It's the same pattern Google already applied with Chrome and with the RCS protocol, which was supposedly an open messaging standard that Google ended up controlling. But everything I just told you is only half the story, because when the community found out and exploded with rage, Google didn't back down. They did something much worse. They came out to promise something they never intended to fulfill. When all of this became public, people went crazy. Developers, content creators, privacy organizations, everyone was furious. But Google, instead of backing down, did something worse. They came out and lied. Their executives said publicly, relax, APKs are not going to disappear. And they promised they would create a special system called Advanced Flow, which would basically be an alternative path so that people who know about technology could keep installing apps outside the Play Store without having to go through verification, Sounds good, but when experts went to look for that advanced flow in Google's official documentation, they found nothing. It doesn't exist. While on their blogs, they say we're designing it, on their official rules page it still clearly states that starting September 2026, everything gets blocked with no exceptions. And this isn't just me saying it. It's being said by a coalition called Keep Android Open, which is more than 40 organizations from around the world united to fight against this decision. We're talking about the creators of Proton Mail, the people behind the Tor network, which is the most widely used anonymity tool on the planet, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is like the legal army of digital rights on the internet, and many more organizations that defend privacy and online freedom. People who normally never come together, but this time, they united because they understand that this isn't just a simple update. This is Google closing Android, and they say it clearly, until Google proves that the advanced flow will actually exist and will work without obstacles. We should believe what their official page says, and what it says is total blockage. So basically, Google launched a nice promise so that the media would run headlines like Google backs down and calm people down. But underneath they kept pushing forward with the block as if nothing happened. Then, when people complained that not all developers can pay $25 or hand over their passport, Google said, "We're also going to create a free account for students and people who code as a hobby." Sounds nice, right? But the process to use it is so ridiculous that it seems designed so that nobody uses it. Google calls it Handshake, which is basically an exchange of codes between the developer and each user. In simple terms, it's an authorization that the APK creator gives to each user who installs it, something nobody would do, and that only works for very small communities. Google created that option just so they could say, "See, there are free alternatives," while making sure nobody can actually use it seriously. It's basically pure window dressing, and there's still more. Google admitted that if they ever do launch the advanced flow, they're going to design it with something they call coercion resistance, which sounds very technical, but in practice, it just means they're going to fill the process with red warning screens, scary messages, forced pauses, and extra steps designed to make you tired and give up before finishing. Something like those antivirus programs from the 2000s. What they're aiming for is that 99% of people abandon the process halfway through, and that any store trying to compete with the Play Store dies on the spot because nobody is going to go through that hell just to install an app. This isn't new either. When Epic Games took Google to court, internal emails were leaked where Google's own engineers admitted they had put up barriers on purpose so people wouldn't install apps from outside. So what Google is doing in 2026 isn't something new. They've been designing obstacles for years, so you only use their store, and so they can make more money. The only difference is that now they stopped hiding it and showed their true face. And if you think this only matters to programmers, brace yourself, because what comes next affects every single person who owns an Android, and the consequences are worse than you imagine. Google is already moving forward, and this isn't hypothetical. In March 2026, the mandatory global registration opens where all developers have to submit their documentation. In September 2026, the block begins in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, where any APK from an unverified developer gets automatically blocked. And starting in 2027, it expands worldwide to more than 95% of Android phones on the planet. The Keep Android Open coalition, I mentioned before, didn't just stop at denouncing it. They published an open letter addressed to Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, and to the founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin, demanding that they cancel this policy. First, this kills open source. F-Droid, which is the largest free app store on Android, cannot force thousands of anonymous programmers from around the world to register their passports with Google. So under the new rules, all of their apps would be automatically blocked. The developers are being direct. Don't hand over your ID. Don't hand over your private keys. Don't pay the fee. They're asking everyone not to register because Google's plan only works if developers submit. Second, this destroys anonymity and puts lives at risk. Activists under dictatorships who develop encrypted communication apps would have to hand their passport over to Google, the same corporation that in 2018 secretly built a censored search engine for China called Project Dragonfly, designed to link people's searches to their phone number and facilitate state surveillance. But the developers also point out something key. Android already has sufficient tools. Google Play Protect scans billions of apps every day. The permission system lets you control what each app does, and sandboxing, which is like a bubble, isolates each app so it can't mess with the others. If you already had all of that to protect users, then why did you choose the worst option? And what will happen to Android if it closes up? Companies like Samsung, Huawei, and Xiaomi would have even more reasons to launch their own operating systems. Huawei is already doing it with Harmony OS, and if other manufacturers follow that path, what we know today as Android could cease to exist. For years, if you wanted freedom, you chose Android, and if you wanted security, you chose Apple. But now Google is building an iPhone with a different logo, or a Temu version, and in that scenario, what's the point of choosing Android? The story isn't over. Keep Android Open has already sent their case to the European Commission and to the United States Department of Justice. And what happens in the following months will be decisive for the future of Android, something that will make us understand why technological freedom must always exist.